Hello everyone, and welcome to my Duel Today official news channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Sloan rips into Eric in Stefan's message to Ava and Harris strike the sheets. According to Monday, March 18th spoilers for Days of Our Lives, Steve Johnson will face backlash from John Black for withholding information about what transpired in Aria and telling Marlena Evans before him all these years later. John intends to provide updates regarding his encounter with Konstantin Meliunis and the tale he learned about Katharina. However, Steve and Marlena will endeavor to reassure John that he has transformed from the previously programmed individual he once was. John will, however, continue to feel guilty for Katharina's unfortunate outcome and will react violently as a result. John might not be accountable as no one saw the crime, despite his best efforts to absorb the information. It appears that Ava Vitali and Harris Michaels, Steve Burton, will set aside their differences and settle down on one bed together in Monday's episode of Days, which takes place across town. Fans of DOOL can anticipate that EJ DiMera will send a message to Stefan DiMera, who is now in hiding while he awaits his brother's approval. Harris has been at the DiMera mansion asking too many questions and making too many accusations, so when it comes to Stefan's next moves, EJ will be prepared to keep the show moving. Days teasers indicate that although Stefan has probably been locked up in the DiMera basement, EJ will take a drink with him in the living room and provide information about his escape strategy. They will argue over Jude Brady's christening over with Eric Brady and Sloan Peterson Brady, temporarily portrayed by Natasha Hall. Given that Nicole DiMera offered to host the celebration at the DiMera estate, Days spoilers naturally imply that this may truly be about the reception. Upon learning that Eric declined Marlena's offer to throw the party herself, Sloan might take offense at Eric for hurting her future mother-in-law. Even though Eric says Marlena was okay with it and tells Sloan to calm down, she won't stop being angry at Nicole's part in this. When the moment comes, Sloan might make some predictions about the event turning into a catastrophe. Stay tuned for more of squabbling between Eric and Sloan. According to spoilers for Days of Our Lives, Holly was in her bedroom when Tate texted her to beg her to give him a call. Tate climbed up to her bedroom window to grab her attention, but she did not reply. Tate gave Holly a hug and expressed his longing for her once she let him inside. He informed Holly he was afraid and had considered running away when he pulled away, but Holly assured him he didn't have to. Holly was reassured by a relieved Tate, who then planted a kiss on her lips. Chuckled after the kiss, Holly referred to Tate as Little Romeo and said that he looked like another boy she had known in 6th grade when he climbed the trellis. Tate remarked the youngster had done crazier things when she mentioned he had received a broken arm for his efforts. Though she wasn't skeptical of his claim, she questioned his purpose for being there. Tate claimed he felt he had no choice because she hadn't replied to his messages and he didn't have carrier pigeons. Holly apologized and said she was sorry, but she didn't know what to say to him. Tate told Holly not to feel regretful, but Holly insisted that she was humiliated and ashamed of herself for taking the pills, despite his warnings not to. Tate inquired as to whether her apology was limited to not listening to him, while Holly questioned what other transgressions she ought to have apologized for. He told her everything that had transpired while she was unconscious, including how EJ had accused him of being the cause of her overdose, gotten him jailed, and then sent him to the rehab center. Tate begged Holly to help him by admitting the truth and accepting responsibility for the drugs, but Holly claimed not to have known. Tate became infuriated with Holly when she refused, asking why she would willingly wreck his life. Tate retorted that people would still believe him guilty even if Holly stated she would tell everyone that he had not given her the drugs. Holly described how she had heard her mother say that if Holly had used drugs on purpose, her mother would be dissatisfied and would put the responsibility on Holly. Holly asserted that she could not witness her mother's breakdown once more. Tate questioned whether she would sacrifice him to maintain her image as the golden child, but their debate was cut short when the door handle was turned. A hardly conscious Tripp and Wendy discussed getting married in a beachside chapel. With her head resting on Tripp's shoulder, Wendy muttered that she enjoyed their vows, but that they hadn't had enough time to say them. She fought to stay awake and uttered the conventional vows. They then fantasized about having 2 children and purchasing a home in the country. Wendy seemed to lose consciousness as a drowsy Tripp said a prayer after they had exchanged pledges of love. An entangled Ava scolded herself for falling for Clyde's falsehoods and battled to break free. When Steve and John got there, they immediately became enraged with her for ruining the plan. Ava informed them that Goldman had stated Tripp was close to death while they were untying her. She complained that it was all her fault, but Steve interrupted her, saying he could not accept his son's departure. Steve and John urged that they call the police once they were back at the flat. John informed Rafe about the hostage footage over the phone. John called the situation time-sensitive and consented to email the department the film via computer. In an attempt to find more hints, the group chose to watch the video again. Steve saw that Wendy had been making gestures and circular motions in the background while they watched Tripp read instructions on the video. Wendy had been signing the word beer, and he realized that she was using American Sign Language. John thought Tripp and Wendy were being confined in a tank after he saw grooves in the walls on the footage. The crew raced to the location after Steve realized there was a brewery close to the airport. When they crashed through the door, they discovered Wendy and Tripp unconscious. Ava dialed 911 while Steve, John, and the couple were receiving CPR. As a distraught Ava prayed as Steve attempted to revive Tripp, John announced he was losing Wendy. Rafe and Jada talked about how shocked they were still that Goldman was the mole at the police station. When Harris arrived, he disclosed that, defying medical advice, he had checked himself out of the hospital. Rafe and Jada abandoned their protests and gave him an update on the investigation's progress since he wanted to assist with it. Jada claimed they had looked through Goldman's phone and bank records and investigated her apartment, but they had not found any relevant information. Goldman was a cop, Harris thought, and they had to anticipate her maneuvers by skating where the puck's going, not where it is right now. Goldman was no amateur. Jada let it all out about how the police had been covering for Clyde right under their eyes, when she had been consoling Goldman after the shooting. Jada and Rafe started piecing together the facts, concluding that Goldman was most likely responsible for Lucas's attempted murder. After John called Rafe with the footage of Tripp being held captive, the 3 of them decided to use GPS to find out where Goldman's police cruiser had been going. After realizing that Tripp and Wendy were probably being detained in the brewery, Harris and Rafe also went there. When they got there, they pulled their weapons and saw John and Steve giving Tripp and Wendy CPR. While Abe was praying at Paulina's bed, a dazzling light burst into the space, revealing a woman standing behind him. When Abe turned to face Paulina, she was shocked and murmured, "Hello, Abraham," touching a wedding band on her hand. When Abe, perplexed, questioned if the woman knew him, she said, "Of course." Paulina's immediate, amazed response to Abe's question about whether he was hallucinating was, "It's you, Lexi." Paulina identified herself and mentioned having seen Lexi's photos.